Hey everybody, it's Dan Harris. Thanks for checking out our video series. Today we're going to be talking about 10 players that you'll regret drafting. Now remember, this is regret drafting as in regret drafting at their ADP. If you draft these players, you'll probably be fine so long as you get them at a discount. But for now, given where they're going, these are 10 players you're going to regret drafting. Alright, let's start off with Jonathan Taylor. Taylor is going 10th in consensus half PPR average draft position. I have him 16th overall. So I'm not fading Jonathan Taylor entirely. Some people are. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just telling you that you will regret taking him at 10th overall. So what's the good with Taylor? He absolutely exploded down the stretch last season, dominating over his final 6 games. He finished as the RB6 on the season. The Colts still have a strong offensive line. Everything looks to be trending in the right direction for Carson Wentz, and that's going to help the offense. Now, some people are discounting a bit his final 6 games last year because they came against notoriously weak defenses, but it's not like Taylor was some career backup or something who got lucky. He was drafted to do exactly what he did. So I think he deserves more credit than some of my colleagues do, regardless of those matchups. The bigger issue for me is the fact that we know Frank Reich. We know he likes to use a rotation in his backfield. Now, I know he recently said Taylor's going to be used in more of a bell cow role, but think about it. Last year, we thought it was Taylor's time on like 5 separate occasions, right? Only for it to then be Nyheim Hines' day or a Jordan Wilkins day. Jordan Wilkins was once a priority pickup last year. Think about that for a second. Now you've got Marlon Mack back healthy. He's still a quality running back, and you're telling me it's just going to be the Taylor show? I just don't think it is. And it has to be if you're drafting him at 10th overall. So I'm not fading Taylor. I'll take him if he's in the 2nd round. But if you take him at 10th, I'm out. Next up, let's talk about DeAndre Swift. Swift is going 34th in consensus average draft position. I have him 44th. Now, I've actually been one of the more vocal Swift defenders this year in terms of my ranking, so I don't love doing this, but late 3rd round, just a little early for my taste. What do we know about new offensive coordinator Anthony Lynn? Well, we know from his time with the Chargers that he kind of likes having a pass-catching back and then more of a ground and pound back for the goal line. We know he got really excited about Jamal Williams when the team brought him on, so we already have somewhat of a strike against Swift. A groin injury slowed him in camp, and he purportedly may not even be fully ready for week 1. That's another strike. The Lions' offense is going to be abysmal. That's another strike. Look, Swift has talent without question. 1.58 yards per route run last year. That's really, really good for a running back. But it's not going to matter much if he's not the primary running back in that offense. And right now, there's just no reason to expect that he will be. Draft Swift. He's fine as a low-end RB2, but taking him ahead of CeeDee Lamb and Robert Woods like he is currently going in ADP, that's a mistake unless you are totally desperate for running backs. Next up, let's stay in Detroit and talk about TJ Hockenson. He is 56th in ADP. He is 72nd for me. So we know how tight end works this year, right? Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Darren Waller are the big 3. Then you've got Mark Andrews, TJ Hockenson, and Kyle Pitts. Then everybody else. Now, if you want to take the upshot at Pitts once you get to like the 6th round, I can live with it given the enormous potential. But why are you drafting TJ Hockenson in the 5th? I understand he was good last year. He'll get a lot of targets, but remember what we just said. This offense is not going to be good. There's like a 50% chance that Logan Thomas or Tyler Higbee is going to outscore Hockenson given their situations, and you can get them rounds later. Taking Hockenson with a 5th round pick when you could have Deontay Johnson or Brandon Ayuk, that just doesn't work for me. Another player you'll regret drafting at his ADP is Leonard Fournette. 86.8 in ADP, that's nuts. I'm 119th overall. Now, I'm not going to belabor this one because I know you're sitting there thinking, on what planet are people drafting Leonard Fournette 86 overall? The answer is this one, 86th on Sleeper, 86th in the FFC, 82nd on Fantrax. Don't blame the messenger. There's no playoff Lenny in the regular season. Ronald Jones is a better runner. If there's going to be a quote-unquote lead back, it's going to be him. Fournette got a lot of work in the passing game last year, but Gio Bernard is going to be the 3rd down back now, and if you doubt that, just watch a Bucs preseason game. Fournette needs Jones to get injured to have any shot at returning real value, and he's going 3 rounds too early. All right, let's head out to Arizona and talk about Chase Edmonds. Games with more than 8 carries in a game in his career, 3. Now, if you think that he's just going to slide in as your borderline RB2 other than in PPR leagues, I think you're kidding yourself. The Cardinals brought in James Conner, and I know everybody thinks James Conner stinks. He does not. He really, really does not. He's just not equipped to be a full-time bell cow back. He is particularly effective around the goal line as per PFF. Plus, you know Kyler Murray, when healthy, is going to steal touches around the goal line. So we've got a timeshare running back who mostly specializes as a pass catcher and who is not going to get goal line work going in the early 6th round. It's 64th overall, guys. That's about 20 spots too early. That's just not a pick that ends well other than in PPR leagues. Next up, let's talk about Darrell Henderson. He is 46.3 in ADP. He is 63rd in my rankings. Now, you'd think that this ADP is purely a product of before the Rams traded for Sony Michel, but no, this is still where Henderson is being drafted. Now, there was a momentary pause when the Adam Schefter report came out about how Michel probably would be the lead back, but now everyone's coming around to the fact that it almost certainly cannot be true, and I agree with that. You don't trade for Sony Michel a couple of weeks before the season to make him your new featured back. That's especially true when you have a player like Henderson who, you know, is actually good. He is explosive. He was drafted by this regime and he has had success before. So that's all good for Henderson, right? We shouldn't be running from him. We should be drafting him way ahead of Michel, all of that, but not at 46.3. First, Henderson does have the thumb injury, and although the Rams are saying it's minor, they had weeks to sign someone or make a trade before they got Michel, and they did not. Then, soon after the injury, they do make the trade. So right off the bat, you got a potentially bad sign there. And second, even though Henderson should be the lead back, Michel is going to factor in, because Michel, also not a terrible running back. He was PFF's 15th highest graded back in his time last year. He is decent around the goal line. He's going to factor in. And given what we've seen of Sean McVay's offenses with another legitimate back on the roster, Henderson is going to lose some touches. That loss is enough to make you regret drafting him at 46th. Wait an extra round or two. At number 4, it's Russell Wilson. This is partly just about you guys needing to wait longer to draft quarterbacks. I thought we were there, but apparently we are taking Russell Wilson and Justin Herbert and Dak Prescott in the 5th round. That's silly. This is 2021. Have we learned nothing? Wait till the end of your draft. Take Jalen Hurts or Matthew Stafford or something. So really, I could have several different quarterbacks here, but I chose Wilson specifically because I have him a little lower than our consensus, and so I'm specifically avoiding him at that ADP. It is simple with Wilson. He's a fantastic football player, one of the best quarterbacks in the game, and I do think they want him to air the ball out a bit more this year, yes, but I also think that Pete Carroll is going to crush that plan the second the offense has a game that struggles, and then the defense gets worn out. He's going to morph back into the slow-paced, run-the-ball type of offense that he has run for almost his entire career. He's about to turn 70 years old. You think suddenly he's just going to throw caution to the wind and air it out regardless of what comes? I think the most likely scenario is we see sort of a repeat of last year. Huge start for Wilson, couple of losses for the Seahawks, back to the conservative philosophy. So I'm a little hesitant on Wilson, and I certainly think that you'll regret drafting him in the 5th round. At number 3, let's talk about Kareem Hunt. Now, you cannot really argue that Hunt was a disappointment last year. He finished as a top 10 running back, and he started out like a house on fire. But kind of like Josh Jacobs, if you rostered him, you didn't really feel good about it all year. You didn't feel like you had that RB1 the whole time. And so part of what makes Hunt so appealing, right, is not only the fact that he's in a very good offense that uses an extremely run-heavy scheme. It's that high-end handcuff value. Should something happen to Nick Chubb, his value goes through the roof, right? But it didn't really last year. His value was mostly the same without Chubb, and there's an argument to be made that he was better with Chubb on the field. And again, he started really, really hot, but over his final 7 games, he averaged 53 total yards per game. Not rushing yards, total yards. And now you have Odell Beckham Jr. back, which might make the Browns lean into the pass just a little more. Hunt is fine as an RB3 or a flex, but he's being drafted as an RB2. I would gladly take Mike Davis ahead of him. At number 2, it's Miles Sanders. You guys know this already. Sanders is going 38th in ADP. I have him 53rd. He's never been a bell cow back. He's obviously not going to be one this year. He rarely surpasses 15 touches in a game. The Eagles they continue to have plenty of running back depth. Nick Sirianni came from Indianapolis under Frank Reich, who, as we discussed earlier with Jonathan Taylor, likes the committee approach. And Jalen Hurts is going to steal some touchdowns. Also, I get that it's cool to have some preseason hate for some teams like the Eagles and the Bengals, and we need to be careful of that, but there are not a ton of positive reports coming out about the Eagles' offense. With so much uncertainty, there's just no way you're going to feel good about drafting Sanders at the top of the 4th round. And the number one player to avoid at his ADP is Mike Evans. Mike Evans is great, okay? But first, what are the targets going to look like? Chris Godwin missed time last year. Antonio Brown didn't come on board until mid-season. Rob Gronkowski didn't really catch up until the middle of the season. Evans still got just 109 targets. 7 games with 3 or fewer catches. 10 games with 56 or fewer receiving yards. Yes, he is a red zone threat, but now again, we've got the full year of Brown, Godwin, Gronkowski, Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, Gio Bernard, and a really, really good defense, meaning they don't absolutely have to air it out all day. Now, you can and should draft Mike Evans, but you will regret drafting him at wide receiver 13. And that's going to do it for 10 players you'll regret drafting. Remember, this is regret drafting at their ADP. Don't at me if they have a big game or something in the first week, like Mark Andrews last year, who I also recommended against drafting at his ADP. Thanks for checking out our video series. Make sure you subscribe here to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/FantasyPros and follow us over on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at FantasyPros so you don't miss any of the great content that we'll be pumping out all season long.